Hello, universe. Welcome to Pickathon Podcast, episode 10. I'm your host, Zale. I'm the founder of the Pickathon Music Festival, and this is a podcast. It's an adventure podcast about trying to find something interesting in life, or just discover something, make it, fall in love all over again. So that's what we do. That's what we are, and wish us luck. Here we go. My guests today are an incredible band that kind of came together over COVID, and we'll hear the story, Small Paul. It's a kind of a mixture of several bands. And it's interesting, when I was thinking of the story of Small Paul getting together, coming together in a band during COVID, COVID is this weird time for everyone in the industry, in the music world. It brought up a real, kind of poignant remembering of what our story was versus COVID. And I think it's going to touch with Small Paul and kind of the whole industry, because back in February, something was coming. March 2020, things were getting more serious. And from a festival point of view, we were selling tickets. We were like in the heart of it. We had already had staff and we were working. And so like in a tiny irrational festival like Pickathon, we don't have like a lot of extra fat. So we pretty much ride those ticket money and start paying people and start working. We do it all year long. And there's not a lot in the bank. It's just the way it is. It's just a kind of a dream. I had day jobs and worked almost my whole life just to kind of keep Pickathon, so it had to be something that had to pay myself. When COVID hit in 2020, it just was this incredible, depressing thing for the whole music industry. We all had lives that didn't have things in the bank, and all of a sudden it's all shut down. And for some people it was shut down, but for music it was especially hard, like beyond hard. Like, what happens when you can't get together socially, and venues, artists, anybody in any part of it. And we found ourselves trying to think about, well, what can we do? That was like our first response. Like, okay, we got all these people, everybody's like feeling like in that first kind of sense of, how do we help? Like, even though we're in total crisis, free fall, we don't have any plan, like how we're going to pay people back. It was impossible to figure out what we were going to do. So we started helping. The first thing we did is we got together with this organization called Music Cares, which is actually run by the Grammys down in LA. And we reached out, and they were totally looking for people to help raise funds. And, we went and kind of started kind of going in our back catalog and creating, I guess we had 800 concerts or something. And we came up with this idea. What if we do a concert a day and we put this on Facebook and YouTube and Twitter? We do it live and we put donations and we raise money. And then we do it with the artists. The artists can kind of join us, and every day we'll do this. We'll do this for 60 days. We started in April and through May. And our idea was, let's just see how much we can raise. And like instantly when we started doing that, it felt really good, because we had our whole team, which we had already kind of committed to for trying to keep them going. And we raised a ton of money. We raised so much money. We were like right behind the Grateful Dead. Pickathon and the Grateful Dead, raising money for Music Cares as kind of independent. There was tons of money coming in from all kinds of other places, corporate money. Amazon sponsored us. They helped sponsor this. So they helped take care of some of our people. And it was this great, awesome thing. And some of these things became super viral. And we have some of those concerts up there. It was so great that at the end of 60 days, we were talking with the Grammys. We started we felt like some kind of big TV company played it on TV, but we're just, we're scrappy. And they said, let's do another 60 days. And we're like, absolutely, let's go. And so we did that all the way up to actually Pickathon, where Pickathon was, and kind of did this big couple 3-hour chunks that were made special. And it was just this amazing energy. It was such an awesome thing to do. And we did that not really having any plan, like this free fall, like we're doing this while disaster is setting in. Can't even pay back our people. We had to the ticket holders, we had to put that off till the next time they come, because we were like broke, like beyond broke. And yeah, it was crazy. And what kind of happened next was really interesting. Like this whole industry of music and venues didn't really have a really organization. It just wasn't organized across the country. But every scrappy bar to every big venue, all of a sudden, regionally it started to happen. And then NIVA, National Independent Venue Association, was kind of born. It was this incredible, scrappy group of independent venues that decided that, hey, we're all going to be just done. You're not going to see a venue in anywhere in this country. It's going to be like 90% closing down. And that means once the venues are gone, there's nowhere place for anyone to play. And so that whole birth of kind of venues coming together was this really powerful moment. It wasn't actually something that ever happened before. Like, I don't think we'd had ever organized. And it got so much momentum. I think we set records in terms of number of letters sent to Congress. It became this incredible force that got a lot of attention, got a lot of national stories. People were passionate. So people in local communities were just relentless sending this in, trying to get folks to focus on this. And Save Our Stages was kind of like the big, outcome of that. There was legislation and some kind of life support that was given to venues. And that saved us. So that plus some PPP, keeping our employees. And it didn't just save us, it saved the entire industry. It literally, there probably would be very little music scene in this country, left after COVID. So I look at COVID as as tragic as it was, it's interesting to see the kind of resilience of humans and how they respond to this and have so much kind of good actually happen that came out of it, even with the absolute tragedy of how it impacted people. It also had this resilience of how people were able to respond to that and kind of adapt and make something that to this day NIVA exists and is this incredible national organization that's, I think, is going to make independent music so much stronger than it ever was, prior to COVID. I think it's a good entry point to introduce Small Paul. Welcome, guys. How you doing?
Doing great. Thanks for having us.
So you guys have kind of a similar COVID story. I'm sure you guys were in bands and they just stopped, right? Like that was the first thing how did you know COVID? How did COVID really hit you guys when it first started?
I had just moved back to Seattle, and I'd had a 5-week long tour, and so I play in a band called the Moondoggies. We've been around for a long, long time, and we had some good energy going into March 2020 with plans, and it definitely hit a wall. And so I didn't really see the Moondoggies for the next 2 years, more or less. I mean, I saw our drummer, but it really was that kind of detachment. And there's still that drive and need to play and perform. And it's funny what you were just talking about. I found that it might be a mentality of making lemonade out of lemons, but it's this weird thing where I have found that sometimes some of the best things that I've ever been a part of or gotten to do have come out of some really dark times.
It's strange, and just I should introduce you. This is Kevin Murphy. He's one of the founders of Small Paul, but also in Moondoggies. And so, actually, was there a tour where you guys did it literally just shut down like that? Were you guys in an active phase?
Yeah, we were. It was funny. It was probably gearing up to be more active than it had been, which unfortunately coming out of COVID is a little bit of the opposite. And I'm thankful for Small Paul because Small Paul, on the other hand, has been super active.
And so other members here today of Small Paul is Seth McDonald and Chris King. And Chris King and I think actually Malcolm Roberts are in another band.
Yeah, Chris King and the Gutterballs.
And the Gutter Balls. It's awesome.
Yeah.
And so were you guys also kind of active at that point? Was it like, was COVID like, okay, we have just shut your plans down?
Yeah, it was quite a bummer, as it was for a lot of people, pretty much everybody. But yeah, we were gearing up for our longest tour yet. We had just put out a KEXP live in studio with Eva Walker,
brutal.
so we were feeling pretty hot, and the ball was rolling, and then it was just an immediate kind of stop, and we were kind of just crushed, like, this is our momentum, really got kind of halted. So it is kind of a similar story to Kevin's, where Small Paul was kind of a really beautiful thing that grew out of something really tragic.
Lemonade out of lemons. I like it.
Yeah.
And Seth, you too, like you was AllStar Opera, the band you were in, where that was so things were going, right?
Things were definitely going. We had just done like a tour down to South by Southwest, like, a couple months prior. I mean, almost a year prior. We had plans to tour all throughout the spring. And we were also like, we had just begun our sophomore album, like recording in the fall before COVID. And it just put everything on hold because we had a couple of bandmates who had really needed to like just be careful with their partners at home and like couldn't really be around a lot of people. And what's interesting about it is, like AllStar Opera is a 7-person hip hop soul band, whereas Chris King and the Gutterballs and the Moondoggies are definitely, not the same by any means, but like they live in a similar world. And the backstory with it is that, during my day job is working in the music industry, and I was managing Chris King and the Gutterballs.
Oh wow!
at the time, up until COVID hit, and they were hot, and so I basically made them my pod mates because I underestimated COVID, and I was like, this will be like a month or so. Let's just keep rolling. Let's not stop meeting up, doing these business meetings. But, I'd been managing them for like a year and a half, and we had never actually played music together. Good friends, but like, always busy. Like, and my wife is a nurse, and so she was one of the few people that actually had work at the beginning of COVID.
Oh wow!
And so we get done with a business meeting one day, and I was like, what are you guys about to do? I have nothing to do for the next several hours. My wife's at work. And that was the first time we really jammed, and Kevin lives with Chris, and Malcolm was here at the time, living here. And so just by random chance of being pod mates with them and having nothing else to do, we went down to the basement.
And when was that? Was that March of
2020? It was probably
pretty
like
quick
May.
after.
May.
Yeah. Couple months in.
So you guys brought, I think you brought songs like Chris and Kevin. Were you guys, who was making this? Where's Strangeland, that first EP? Whose songs are those?
They're like everyone's.
It's everybody's. Yeah.
It's everybody. So these were like truly like jams. Like, here's an idea.
Yeah.
Well, there's two. I mean, Chris and I have mentioned before, like with our respective bands, we're kind of the leaders and chief songwriters. And there's something kind of more collective about this project, whereas although there will be moments of songs that someone might be in the driver's seat, we kind of welcome, like Chris and I are basically playing musical chairs on the drums. And then if, say, Malcolm starts something on the bass or Seth starts something, like there's always a song to be written. And so it's not that we're all just equally writing a song, but there's no pressure on one specific person. Like a song can come from anywhere. So it's been a little bit easier in that respect for us to be the fact that it was kind of a happy accident and it's so kind of laid back like that has allowed the creativity to flow pretty well.
Yeah, it takes a lot of pressure off of it when you're thinking about it. Like this is just jamming, right?
Yeah.
And so Chris and Kevin, you guys switch off on guitar and drums. Do either of you sing while playing drums?
Yeah, we both sing and play the drums. And
Von Helm style.
Yeah.
I love it. There's something awesome about a singing drummer. There's just, it's so great.
Yeah, it feels as good to watch as it is to play.
Yeah, it seems hard though. Like I can imagine, I play mandolin, I can play, but I can't imagine the drums and singing. I just too much brain power there to like figure it out.
Well, there was a interview with Levon that I saw recently, and maybe this is what we do subconsciously, but he says you always, when you're writing your drum part, you're leaving those little singing pockets.
Oh yeah.
So you kind of write your drum parts around that.
I love it. I mean, he's one of the greatest songwriters and singers of our everything he did and sang. It hit me. We interviewed Lee Fields and he brought something to my attention. He's like, he follows the emotion. I was like, it's like this deep connection, but no, it's like literally he's thinking about the emotion that people are feeling while he's singing, and he's like there with it, at the same time. And I thought it was so great, beautiful. I was like, Levon did that to me too. Like when he's singing, it's so emotional, right? It's just he's right there.
Yeah.
And there is some of that in you guys, a little bit of of a lot of bands. Like when I heard the Strange Land, like that first song, The Mountain, is so epic. The whole EP, it's really kind of a masterpiece, guys. The fact that you guys just kind of accidentally put this together and put it on, it's a fully formed sound. It's almost like a stadium anthem. That like the way you guys came up with The Mountain, I was like, wow, this thing, this, if this was the 70s, it'd been on the radio, right?
Yeah.
This would be like right there with folks like, it has a little bit of the band and the Flying Burrito Brothers and, like it has elements, but I can hear a mashup between, from all you guys, like listening to your projects. It's cool. And I usually, songs, my experience, they tend to be driven by, like a main songwriter. So to have such like not watered down songs and really developed coming from 4 people is pretty cool.
Thank you. Yeah, it's sprung from a similar place, I guess, as the band, because it's a seclusion and in a basement, and magic happens then.
How long did it take? How long did those 4 songs come out? Like, was that all in one session or like over a month or?
Several months. Yeah, we were working on those in the basement and kind of just figuring out who plays the drums on what and what dancing around and.
Okay. Well, first of all, everybody was a little slow except for me to come around that this was a band.
Yeah,
I think Chris and I more or less wrote Soul Sugar, and as that to me confirmed that we had the capability. To me, it was just going to be like a basement tapes style.
But side note about Soul Sugar is I brought that riff to AllStar Opera, and they didn't want it. And I was like, I guess it's not hip hop, and so I just had that riff lying around, and I came to what I didn't even know it was Small Paul at the time. We didn't have a name for it, and it's I don't think I realized we were a band for a year.
That's cool. But Kevin, you did. You kind of did know it was going to be.
I just felt like there was something. I didn't really know what it was or what the expectations. It was the fact that I thought we had something worth documenting for our time during the pandemic. And Soul Sugar was probably the first one that got me excited, where I felt like we put in the work and the harmonies. And I was like, if we were kind of slowly building, and it was like, if we just get 4 or 5 more of those, we could play out, as soon as shows happen again. But to me, like that, because Mountain in Mexico specifically, more so Malcolm playing the bass and us going like, we'll write a song around that.
Yeah, Malcolm started that bass line.
Those are great songs, and both of them have this kind of like epic, just almost instant classic feel. Like you just hear it, and I'm just like, oh, I'm just, the song structure too is really great on both of those. I love both those songs.
Yeah,
Which
Malcolm's a
is the
big
fun
steel
part. I
guy.
mean, like with the band or the Beatles or these kinds of groups that I'm particularly enamored with are those elements that um, maybe somebody is like a principal songwriter, but it's what everybody collectively can bring to it that can bring it to make it kind of come alive and uh, to suddenly take on a life. And I feel we all have that kind of excitement in the creative process. So these songs started to kind of build up. And then for at the end of the pandemic, the Moondoggies ended up opening the Tractor back up
Oh, wow.
for their first shows. And it was my birthday weekend, so I very self-indulgently added Small Paul to the bill, knowing that we only had 25 minutes worth of music at time.
Yeah, no
And
encore.
and to me, it was honestly to confirm to the rest of the guys whether or not they were on board yet, to prove that if we played these songs in front of people, I think they would have a good time.
Was it a good response?
Yeah.
Yeah, the best response.
Yeah.
That first show coming out of COVID,
That-
I bet.
The one you can't turn back from. Now you're a band because you played that show and it did great. So
And most of our
That's so
first
good.
shows with our bands are in front of like, your girlfriend at the time and a couple of friends and a
Mhm.
bunch of drunk people. But I put them in front of a packed tractor. The stuff was like, all right, let's fly, And it was
Great venue.
because I felt there was this element that like I didn't want us to like kind of be so dismissive of it, whatever it was. Like I just felt really like this. Everything felt good, and that's good.
Yeah, it's not always the case. So I've heard tons of kind of like fun side collaborations and stuff. I've been part of them myself back, but when it does click, it's different than all of your bands. It's similar to all your bands, but it's different. Except it's not that similar to AllStar Opera. I will say it doesn't have the 7-piece hip hop part. I haven't heard that song yet. Maybe that's coming.
coming down the pipeline.
Yeah.
There you go. It's that first song, that first set, actually my first set, I really remember coming out of COVID. We did a show with Pickathon. We were kind of trying to like do a show because we didn't do the festival. We did some stuff out of Topaz Farms, and Bill Callahan played his first show literally after COVID, like his first show in a couple of years. And it was mind-blowingly like every bit of COVID wrapped in him, all the songs, everything. It came out in that show, and I don't think I've ever seen a better show with one person, and I was just literally blown away. Him playing guitar, and I usually don't. That doesn't happen to me with like one person, but it was one of the greatest shows I've ever seen, and. A lot of that has to do with just maybe me being in my mindset of like, oh my God, we've been inside, or like we haven't had any of these moments. I can only imagine playing at a packed tractor, this being like, you guys, was this the first Small Paul show?
Oh, we did a backyard birthday the week before, or no, it was 4th of July.
Yeah. So
But
like,
first Small Paul in a venue kind of show.
yeah.
First official show.
400 people.
So much emotion, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like,
because everyone had just been like, first it had started off as, will we ever see shows again?
yes.
It's just like the end time. And then it was like
Yeah.
murmurs of shows. And then it was,
Yep.
there's a show on the books. Is it going to happen? Should we even be doing it? And then,
I do feel guilty for.
and there was that kind of like, oh, maybe it happened too quickly. So, because in the following fall, we all kind of went back in for a second, like, oops, sorry, shouldn't have done that.
Sorry. Yeah. Yeah. No, I remember we were shut down we almost opened again, and we were shut down in 2020, almost opened in 2021 and had to shut down again.
A lot of
And
almost.
then we're like, oh man, it was terrible. And then even in 2022 in April, like it was like, it felt like, are we going to do this? We don't know. Like it was a lot of pressure. Okay. I don't know if it doesn't, we knew we couldn't do a festival like COVID distancing and like masks everywhere because people were it would have been impossible. Like 5,000 people like running around telling people to do something. It would have not. So yeah, that was for us the first year there, I guess last year. And that wasn't this really special thing to come back, and everybody was really hungry. We kind of forgot what we were doing, and we also reinvented the whole festival. Oh, and it also grew up with like blackberries the size of houses. Like it was so crazy to like restore an 80-acre farm that hadn't been touched in a couple years. Like we took down 100 trees or something goofy like that because it was just maintenance, right? Things that we did forever.
Is it at the same farm or?
Yeah, it's at this it's at a 100-acre farm called Pindarvis Farm, which is just right on the edge of Portland.
Yeah.
Completely should be a bunch of houses. It should just be mowed down, but it has this very irrational owners and us who are very irrationally like, yeah, we're gonna figure this out. And then, this could be the last Pickathon. You never know.
Yeah.
Because it's a kind of a fragile dream, but we've been in that crosshairs for a long time. It's just, you'll see there is a development all around Pindarvis Farm now. And we have, parking is kind of like close, but it used to be, it was just farms. So when we first started, it was like nothing, golf course and a couple of houses, and that's slowly kind of fully infilled. And I mean, the cool thing is I think people still, it's grown into this thing that people love.
Yeah.
Something like your guys' collaboration, the trick of this, I'm guessing, is to kind of like survive. Like, can this like feed you guys? Is this a side project? Is this an you're going to have two bands now?
Well, we joke about trying to get a pool, it'd be nice to afford a pool with this band. So that's our goal.
Maybe it's like the pool would be great. You guys still live together, Chris and Kevin? Or
Kevin and I still live together.
Oh, cool.
And I know where the hideaway key is for their house. So
yeah, Malcolm is here every day anyway for practice. So,
yeah.
I will say to that, there's a part of it that's like, because we all are doing that kind of dance right now, juggling our projects. But even like with because that kind of loops back to what we were talking about at the beginning about like things kind of come to an end and then have a tendency to be reborn in a new form. And whether or not, I mean, there was like Adobe that kind of turned into Timberfest and those kinds of things up here. And
Love Adobe.
Yeah.
And I did not know that. Actually, is that true? Did
Adobe more or less it's like the same kind of, it's like the folks, the Genesis, like the artist home. And those folks kind of, it's like a same kind of vision. And I think for all of us, we don't have, I'm sure we have band members in other projects who are kind of looking at Small Paul going, how much are you into it? But to me, I think there's room for endless creativity and creating and music, and this is a fun ride for us right now. And I've been with Moondoggies for 20 years, and the sense of it is like home based, but there's also this like, well, we can. I think all of us are currently doing all the projects right now, and then sometimes
it's like open marriage.
Yeah,
we're polyamorous.
Yeah,
you got to have that talk. It's got to be consensual, right?
It's open band marriage, but I think the beauty of Small Paul is that because we all have other projects, we've never really been chasing a tangible like goal with Small Paul. It's just show up and have fun. And while we are dancing with all of our other projects, our Google Calendar would suggest that this is our main project right now, the way that we're booked out. So
yeah,
that's great. And you guys all grew up in Seattle, like, is that right?
More or less.
No,
more or less. Some of you guys, Chris, you moved there, right? When you,
I've been here about 12 years.
And you grew up where, Chris? Where was your?
I grew up in a small town called Corralitos, California.
Okay.
Yeah.
But everybody else is from Seattle?
Malcolm's from Illinois.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've been in Portland since '97. I kind of grew up in Kentucky. I have a good sense of the Portland scene, but what was it like trying to grow up? I mean, you guys were kind of it was like Nirvana and all that stuff was Seattle when you guys were kids, right?
Yeah. And I remember I was just telling someone this weekend, which is actually, I have a funny story. Is I was going to go see Dean Johnson this weekend, a friend of ours. I'm sure you're familiar with.
Yep.
And I was telling them about, I was telling my friends who work at the tractor were riding down with me. And I was like, my mom told me I could go see Nirvana the next time they play. And that was the last time they played in Seattle. I was like 8 years old.
Wow.
And then we show up to this show, which is funny, that ended up being two parties overlapped, and one of them was all the old grungers. So I had just told this story, and I show up, and there's like Mark Arm and like all these like guys of Pearl Jam. I was like, this is so Seattle. If I would have brought someone from out of town, like they would think like, oh, of course, all these people are like hanging out still, and
idealized version of Seattle.
yeah. And I there's something, I'm very thankful for that generation of kind of creating that foundation of Seattle being a music town, or like a tour destination. A lot of that stuff is what I was raised on. Nirvana, Mudhoney. I just, to this day, Nirvana is like my second all time band. And then so I came up playing like it. And when I was a teenager, I got to open up for like Mudhoney with my like punk band. But Seattle is so much more and has been forever. So it's finally kind of over the last 20 years shown that identity. But also, I have a big place in my heart for all of that too.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Seattle, had such that kind of like iconic thing happen, and then but you out of that, you had all of this amazing infrastructure that not a lot of other places in the country have, like KEXP. Like,
Yeah.
what a gift to have that in your hometown. Like, I can't imagine. KEXP is like no other radio station in the universe, right? Like, I think there's great radio stations at a lot of places, but KEXP is there with any of them. It's just flat out.
I know people have been to shows for Moondoggie shows on the other side of the country because of KEXP, because people have just told me to my face, like, I heard you on KEXP. That's why I'm here.
Yeah, it's a great outlet.
Yeah, they support local music, right? That's what's so, they're approachable. I don't know. They're just from Kevin on down, like just the good crew of people. Kevin's come to the festival. I think he's one of the founders of KEXP, right? Kevin Cole. He does his special Prince DJ set at Pickathon where he has all these like rare cut about and
oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I know Vandy's got to be there too.
Vandy.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. El Toro, Kurt.
Hell yeah.
So many of like the primary DJs actually are part of Pickathon. We're very, I think we've always been compared to Timber too. I don't really know the Timber folks, but I think Pickathon, KEXP, Timber, these things are all like intersecting in weird ways.
Yeah.
And, but there's something else I saw that I never even heard of in any of the other cities. And I'm wondering if this is national, but it's called Smash Seattle. Is that?
Yeah.
Like, is this a national or is this just Seattle?
It's just in Seattle. It's sustainable healthcare for musicians in Seattle. But they have another something like it in Texas, and I think a couple other spots. But yeah, it's primarily just in the Pacific Northwest Seattle region.
And are they like, do they really help? Is it like
it's
on paper thing, or is it like a true thing that it actually you can get healthcare pretty reasonably?
Yeah, I mean, I personally have gotten my hearing checked. I've gotten earplugs. I've gotten eyesight checked. I've gotten therapy that I still have a therapist that I use through them, all for free. I've gotten healthcare. So it's a huge outlet for a lot of people that I know in the community and also that I don't know. Great resource for us up here.
You need support, right? To kind of get to the place where you're already, then you're supporting yourself, right? So
yeah,
it's super, so cool to have something like that. I just never heard of it. And was that started by somebody like, I don't know, there's some kind of legend, Paul Allen, I think he was really the reason KEXP really survived in a lot of ways, because he financed it in a way that made it possible to become sustainable. Is there somebody behind like that healthcare, like some secret benefactor? Do you guys know?
Well, I know Denise Burnside was like a huge, like, just the one who instigated it. I know it takes a lot of different fiscal donors to make that
Yeah,
happen.
they have a
They
lot
have
of donors, and
they have a lot of fundraisers, and it's a new thing that started in like 2019 or 2020, and like interesting.
Before COVID, so it
yeah,
wasn't even a
yeah.
response to
Yeah,
COVID.
Oh yeah,
Smash
oh yeah,
Smash is a little bit older than that.
oh
Because I
really?
know, yeah, but I know, like right before COVID, I had done a Neil Young tribute and it was like a lot of the like there was like Pearl Jam and Soundgarden members, and it was a big Smash benefit. And I know that they do these big cool shows and stuff like that, and raise quite a bit of money for the local community.
yeah. They just had a big uh David Bowie tribute night, and they had like Ben Giver, and had a bunch of folks in the Pacific Northwest scene. Staples
It's
come
cool.
and play.
I mean, so like to have, COVID kind of create the NEVA thing for the venues, but I mean, Smash came out before COVID, but it makes you think a lot. Like there should be these things that, that creative people because there's not a lot of worth when it first starts out. Even if it's amazing, it just takes word of mouth and all the time. And, unless you have that giant label, and then that's not a great deal always either, because you're kind of got bought for pennies. So it's like anything you can do to make it sustainable, like as a band, as like this kind of open marriage, having healthcare,
Yeah,
all this stuff, is like part of like I think of like a lot of bands, but I can see how helpful it is for like you guys. It's super cool.
yeah. It definitely makes being a musician a little bit more of a reality, and stuff like Smash helps, is a comfort for struggling.
And your Sonic Guild is another one I never heard of. So what the heck is that?
That came out of Texas.
Yeah, it used to be called Black Fret, and they moved to the name Sonic Guild. Maybe that's what I was thinking. That started in like 2019, 2018. But that's another thing that, I mean, between Sonic Guild and Smash, if every like major metropolis and the North America could like model these two things, I think music scenes would be in a lot better shape long term. I mean, we were able to get a grant this year from Sonic Guild, one of 10 recipients, along with like Thunder Pussy and Deep Sea Diver and all these other incredible acts
Mm-hmm.
of like that basically helped us push forward and put out the album probably a year sooner than we would have been able to do on our own. Like just between vinyl and getting it mastered and all that, it really made the dream.
And you didn't have to get it fronted where other folks then own it and you're paying them off.
Yeah, no, it's just no strings attached, a grant for $8,000, and it made it all possible.
It's huge. I mean, because then all that income is going right back to actually making the band work, right? It's not like this, oh God, we got to pay this off for a year or whatever, and then hopefully make some on top of that.
Yeah.
It's so cool. Actually, I never heard of either of those. I fully agree. Like I kind of like every city should have that. That's just, and it feels like some places in Europe and in Canada that this actually is a lot more common. I hear these stories all the time.
Well, the thing about Europe, in my experience in touring in like Germany and France especially, is art is just prioritized on a higher level. They're subsidizing it at a federal level. And so, I played a show in Berlin where there was like 50 people there, but they paid us like there was 200 people there. They fed us like there was 200 people there. And I was like, you would never see this in America.
No. Here's your hot dog.
Yeah. And your drink tickets.
Yes. And you get some fizzy water.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. It's so weird, isn't it? Like I always say that, like, Mary's like a great music's just so much factory of ideas, but it's the least supported infrastructure valued in organizing like this. Like NEVA really, it was like this. I'm really hugely into that. And to have that all kind of come together, you guys were able to record this record. It's coming out. It's called Come Alive and Live Again. And that's coming out July 28th during Timberfest, right?
Yeah, it works.
And then right before, we'll say Pickathon on August 3rd through 6th.
All in the same week. It's great.
Yeah.
And is that on your own label?
It's
Yeah.
independent.
You could say
4-man records.
Four.
Seth, you have
Records.
managing skills. Are you managing you guys selves too right now?
Well, I think
We've all picked up a little
yeah, I
management
think the
skills.
beauty between Chris, Kevin, and I especially is we've all kind of pushed our respective other projects, like we've been the leaders of those. So no one person has to be responsible for leading it all. Like we all help out in different ways, and like it all just adds up. And it's a huge relief not to be the only one responding to emails or creating opportunities.
Yeah.
And so I can't help but think the name of that album has something to do with your origin story. What is the thought behind that?
I think that's where a lot of our hearts and people in the band, that's where we were at, I think, in general. And then COVID also hit, and it became more of a prominent topic. And I think spawned from that existentialism came rebirth.
Come alive and live again.
Everybody has their kind of own version of what the last couple of years has been, but we more or less have been on similar trajectories in a personal way too. And I think that kind of reflects this optimism of coming out of a dark place, whether it was COVID or our own personal struggles. We all have our own kind of version of that. I know what that means to me, and it's going to be different for Chris, Malcolm, and Seth, but I think we all have our own versions of that. That's not just the pandemic. And so there was something about like the life coming back into, the oxygen coming back into the lungs, and the opening up the blinds and seeing the sun again, to it all, and the making of the record and the joy and love that we put into making it, and excitement, and that title felt like it fit in a lot of different ways.
Yeah,
it's super cool. It resonates with us too. We're still not fully out, I would say. Like for us, like as a festival, it's going to be a couple years. We're still like feeling like, okay, everything got so crazy expensive, and we didn't really draw. We had like fixed kind of income, so figuring it all out is kind of is also hard. But it's in all essence, like that was that kind of the coming out of that dark place, or and really your music speaks to that to me. And seeing the name of the album really just drove it home. I actually got a sneak peek of the record, and I can fully vouch that it's incredible. And there's just like you guys, this is like a home run type of band. I really hope it hits on as many cylinders as I think it should. And I know when you come to Pickathon, you're gonna blow people away.
Yeah.
And like so. You're gonna have.
I wanted to play Pickathon for so long. I'm so excited to do it.
I will say I've been wanting to play Pickathon for a really long time. I took a Greyhound bus up from my hometown in California all the way up to Portland in 2010, I think, with a buddy, and we didn't have anything hardly. We got into the festival, but we didn't have anywhere to sleep. I think we picked up some hay bales and made like a little blanket with like people's blankets that just they laid on the lawn, and I had a wonderful time. And I think it actually it helped to kind of encourage me to move up here, and I got excited about the music.
I didn't know that.
So Pickathon,
that was the year of Bonnie Prince Billy.
Bonnie Prince Billy, Cotton Jones. And a lot of good stuff coming out in that year.
That Bonnie Prince Billy show was, I always say it, that was, I don't know if there was a better concert that I've ever seen. He was out of his mind.
Yeah.
Took way too many recreational, but he didn't bother him in some way. He was just completely like out. The performance was ungodly. It was in the band. That was one of the last times that band actually played.
Yeah.
They didn't play very often. The Cairo Gang. It was just what an incredible mix.
Yeah.
And he came that year because he had to see Michael Hurley. So like I wrote him. I'm like, we're having this. I'm from Kentucky. Come on out to, and he's, because I mentioned Michael Hurley somewhere in the list of artists, he's like, okay,
I'll come.
We'll come. I want to see Michael. And Michael Hurley is, if you guys know him, great story.
Oh yeah, Kevin played a show with him recently,
and
Yeah.
he's a god, right? Like he's
like to songwriters, he's like upper echelon, but to like everyone, to a lot of like normal people, it's just like, I'm not familiar, but I'm like, yeah, you might be because people have covered him, but he's like a songwriter. He's like,
yeah,
he is.
I get lost in those records.
Yeah, and he always adds extra beats, and all the musicians I know play him. He has to know his music because none of them are square. But he came to the festival and had a station wagon that he drove to the festival, and he wouldn't let anyone buy him a hotel. So he sleeps in the back of his station wagon. Like, no, I'm not doing that. And his car broke down twice. I think once he ran out of gas, and then the other time it overheated like 100 feet outside the front gate. So he was trying to leave. And he broke down, and then Louis Longmire, who's a musician here.
We know Louis.
Right now, Louis.
Yeah. Laurel Thirst.
He owns the Laurel Thirst, and he now does, and with some other people. He, what came over the radio that Michael Hurley was broken down. So he goes out there, and Bonnie Prince Billy, Will Oldham knew that too, and they somehow were all sitting on his hood of Michael Hurley's car, and Will Oldham was running around in the front yard of this house, arranging the yard ornaments, in like this kind of crazy pattern. And Louis was like taking all this in, like this was like one of the greatest moments of my life. I'm here with like Michael and Will, and so yeah, I think we try to create that space for all that fun stuff. And Pickathon is. Oh wait, actually, I do know Chris. You also know Ryan, right?
Yeah, well, he was coming to a lot of shows. Saw me at a Polaris Hall, and came and talked to me. We had some tequila together and talked for a couple hours, and then he kept coming to a couple Portland shows that I played, and just worked out.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And that little connection, we were sitting in here like listening to music in this office here. And, we always kick around. We go through something like crazy, like 800, 1,000 bands, like almost 480 hours of music this year, which is a joke amount of music. And it just cut through right away.
Yeah.
I was like, whoa.
I think he was saying he was, because he was coming to Gutterball shows, and then he was saying he wants something that is on the rise, something fresh, maybe an album coming out soon. I said, I know just the thing. This new band, Small Paul, we've just spawned from COVID, and we got a new record on the way, and you might be interested. So here, check it out. And turns out they liked it. So
I can say that, hopefully my prediction here is you guys come, you kill it. You're going to be like, things are going to, at least on the West Coast around Portland, going to hopefully open up for you. And, kind of add to this kind of incredible making lemon, complete the lemonade out of lemons, coming alive and living again. And
the mantra.
Thank you guys for being our guests today. It's been really wonderful to talk to you guys.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you for having us.
Absolutely. And just like, I really hope folks are inspired by your guys' story, because just hearing like you guys pulled this out of COVID. And just, life is a kind of a cool thing. It just leads you to cool places when you stick with it and just don't let it get you down, right?
It leads us to Happy Valley.
Yeah.
Happy Valley, here we come.
Yeah, can't wait.
And with that, I'm going to say, hey, everyone, thank you. This has been episode 10, and we'll be back next week with episode 11. Thank you. We'll see you guys soon. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Peace.
This podcast is produced by Zale Schoenborn, Tanner McCullough, and Evan Throckmorton. Our artwork is by Travis Bone, and additional support by Ryan Stiles. The music in this episode was by our guest of honor, Small Paul. The songs included were Stranger in a Strange Land, A Midnight Sun, Mountain, and the one we're riding out on right now, Minor for a Dream. A big thanks to the whole Pickathon family, and like Zale said, we'll catch you all next week.